Welcome to the Mystic Feminine Fertility Podcast, a sacred container for heart-centered conversations about fertility, pregnancy, menstrual cycles, and divine feminine energy. My name is Annalise Yagyajoti, and I'm a fertility awareness educator, a holistic reproductive health practitioner, and a modern mystic. It is my absolute joy and pleasure to host these conversations and share them with you. Alrighty, my friends, welcome back. Today I am joined by Miss Glenna James. Glenna is a holistic health practitioner, a fertility and pregnancy coach. She works with women to help them understand their own cycles and learn about their bodies. Glenna also holds multiple certifications, including acupressure, feng shui, and holistic nutrition, as well as many, many others. Glenna holds a Master's of Science degree in Complementary and Integrative Health from the National University. She is also a clinical herbalist, as well as a self-published author, her own book of The Energies of Herbs. She is passionate about women's health, fertility, herbs, and wellness. She wants to help women understand their own bodies and have a healthy, active, abundant life. So beautiful. Glenna, where are you at in your menstrual cycle?
I am actually between ovulation and my luteal phase.
Me
So
too.
my temperature just had my first high temperature, even though the first day was like really low.
Mm-hmm.
But this is in the upper 97, close to 98. So I know it's going to go into that because I also do LH testing and check.
Oh, great.
But I also have ovulation pain. So I definitely know that as well.
The middle schmerz.
Yes.
I've never had it, but a good portion of my clients do. Can you describe in your own words what that middle schmerz or that ovulation pain or sensation feels like?
It really depends on the cycle. Usually it's like a mild cramp, either
Mm.
on one or the other side. And then sometimes I've noticed when I'm not as active or I've been really stressed, it's like a very heavy cramp
Mm.
and it can hurt sometimes. But that's mostly I've noticed depends on how I'm feeling throughout the day. And I've noticed because I just found out I had some food allergies, taking that out took a lot of the inflammation out. So now it's just a mild cramp.
Okay. And how long does that sensation last?
It always seems to hit me in the middle of the day.
Okay.
Never in the morning, it's always in the middle of the day and at night. So it usually lasts for a few hours.
Okay.
And if it happens at night, it happens when I go to bed and then I wake up and it's gone.
Interesting. Okay. And so how long ago did you feel that ovulation pain?
I've always have, but I just thought it was like some weird cramp until I started studying and realized, oh, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then tracking it and realizing, wait a minute, LH test, circle fluid, this happens. There's got to be a connection.
Mm-hmm. And what about in this specific cycle? When did you feel it?
It was a little weird because I felt it like a day after the LH test. So I
Uh-huh.
knew, like, wait a minute, maybe I had a slow rise. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt it probably about 2 days ago.
Okay. Well, normally with the LH strip, the luteinizing hormone, like those ovulation predictor kits,
Yeah.
wouldn't those be positive like 24 to 48 hours before the actual act of ovulation?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. It's all coming together. So today, 2 days post ovulation pain on the first day of your high temperature in the space in between ovulation and the luteal phase, how are you feeling in your body? What does this phase of your cycle feel like?
Normally, this phase of my cycle before always felt really drained and very meh. Just like I didn't have a lot of energy, but now fixing my some food issues, I actually have a little bit more energy than I expect.
Okay.
Still kind of grounding into myself, kind
Mhm.
of going into like introspection, but I do feel not as much energy as I had before going into ovulation, but more grounding and more not like your death. No, not a lot of PMS symptoms earlier on.
Mhm.
So that's got me wondering, like, maybe most of those were food related, some of the inflammation. So it's a shock. It's a transition right now.
Yeah. The shock, the transition, the curiosity of like, I'm making changes. How is this going to impact my cycle? Because as you know very well, the menstrual cycle is a vital sign. It's a sign of what's going on deeper in the body. And it's one of the ways that our body communicates with us, tells us what's going on, what's working, what's not.
Yeah, and it really does. And I think what really proved it last month is I usually go a 27 to 28-day cycle. So I'm one of those in the midst ladies, never went any further. It came at 26 days and that freaked me out. It's like, that's what, wait a minute. I ovulated within a normal time. I realized why, because of the inflammation. I
Mhm.
wasn't having as much inflammation. So my cycles, when I've had 26 days, 27 days, not a lot of inflammation. I've noticed like 28 days, even though my cycle might push it where I ovulate on day 15 instead of day 13, I've noticed like the ovulation day, my luteal phase always stays within the same 1 to 2 day window. And I'm like, it's got to be inflammation. So I'll be tracking it and seeing what's going on. But I also think the lunar phase has to deal with it too, and how we go in and out of the equinoxes as well. So always note that, like, this was an equinox this month.
Yes, and we have another one or a solstice coming up. Or no, it's the equinox in September, right?
No, it's actually
Solstice.
we have a mid-quarter date on August 1st.
On August 1st.
Yeah.
Okay. And September 21st, I should know this because it is my birthday and I always forget. Is that a solstice or an equinox?
Um, that yes, I think it's an equinox because the one in December is a solstice.
That would make sense. And so you are someone who lives deeply in tune with your cycle with a deep curiosity and reverence for it. But it sounds like primarily you're an herbalist. What came into your life first?
Ooh. I would say herbalism, but also my master's degree. It was this holistic health. It was, I don't want to just be one thing. It
Yeah.
was, I want to be a collection of knowledge. So it's that on my logo you see ancient wisdom and communal knowledge. So it's taking that and putting it together. And in my master's we learned about herbalism. So it brought me back to my teenagehood where I used to drink a lot of tea
Mhm.
and drink a lot of herbs. And what's really funny is you mentioned that I can't drink black tea. I'm very sensitive to it. So I'm having to weed out the black tea, which is one of my favorite things. But
Mm.
it reintroduced me to herbs where I was just like, got herbs back into my frame of mind. Not that I don't use them all the time, but it put it in a focus of, hey, there's other things that are tea to drink and other herbs. You don't have to drink black tea. So it really, I'm taking it as a learning phase. And again, it's bringing up those herbs, how they're essential. So it's like, that's why I went and did an herbalist degree, because I was like, I want to get into plant medicine
Yeah.
and the healing power of it.
Mhm. And so you mentioned teas. What are some other ways that you like to work with herbs?
Oh, tinctures. I like making tinctures, and because I got to be careful with alcohol,
Yes.
it again, because of sensitivities that I knew I had but didn't really take seriously, it's got me back into the safer side of it, like glycerins that kids can have,
Mhm.
and more people that actually, some people can't tolerate alcohol and other hard vinegars because they have IBS or they've had issues with their stomach. So it's really got me back into the tincture making and being careful about what I'm doing. So it's like, why is this season of carefulness happening?
Mhm. I I don't drink alcohol. It just doesn't do well in my body. And so when I moved to Asheville several years ago, it's a big herbalist town. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to like work with some herbs. And so I was like, I'm going to make some tinctures. And I really don't know much about alcohol, but I went to the store and I just bought Everclear because it was the first thing I could find. And I was making all these tinctures in my house. And I remember I was just putting all these tinctures into my drinks and like into my mouth. And I was feeling so sick. And it took me like at least a week. I was like, oh my God, I'm ingesting like several shots of Everclear because I was just soaking my herbs and making my own tinctures and then not dosing it. So I have so much reverence for the path of herbalism. And I'm so grateful for the herbalists who have come into my life and those who have given me knowledge about herbs and also, yeah, guided me towards, more glycerin based tinctures that work a lot better in my body, where I'm not accidentally intoxicating myself.
And vinegar. Vinegar is another thing. It's just about how much you can extract out. And
Mhm.
vinegar is another thing that you can bring out and make vinegars. Or you can use honey. You can
Yeah.
use syrup and make syrup and honey and more of like a syrup based
Mm.
thing as well.
I've seen a lot of people do like garlic infused honey for immunity.
Hmm.
So I guess, yeah, why couldn't you do that with any herb? And then herbs have re-entered my life recently with Yoni steaming. I've been steaming for a long time from an intuitive background where I just collected herbs and would throw them in a pot and would steam. But now I'm offering this Yoni steam service to my clients. So I'm really diving back into the world of herbalism and learning about the different plant medicines, allies, energies, how they work together, and then adding in steam as a way of supporting the body. Do you offer Yoni steaming or practice Yoni steaming?
I've heard of it. I don't
Oh,
offer it. It is something that's in my belt if need be. But
yeah.
I do, it's kind of like a sitz bath. It's those
Yep.
things with pregnant women. You can offer that. But here, people think sitz bath only for pregnant women. They're not. You can do it for postpartum women, even when they're not pregnant. You can do it for anybody. It's really about healing, especially like let's say you had a really bad rough cycle and you got a lot of pain down there after intercourse, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, you can still do a sitz bath. It's really healing, and like the steaming also is one of those things as well. And I think it's always caution and safety. You got to make sure the person you're doing it from knows what they're doing, and you're not
Absolutely.
like putting the herbs up there. It's like no,
No,
not
no,
using it
no.
as a tampon. It's just steaming, and we know steaming works for the face. It works for the skin,
Mhm.
and that's an orifice. And if you're doing that at the right time of your phase of your cycle, so that's another thing.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. Like steaming it's a relatively gentle practice, but it's not for everyone and it's not for every phase of your cycle. Like if you're trying to conceive, you never steam after ovulation. If you're pregnant, you don't steam. But like the research on it for postpartum really blows me away. That fourth trimester study from Kelly Garza at Steamy Chick, they did a phenomenal job with that study, and really showing the benefits of steaming, especially with recovery after birth. And I use it with my clients to help them decrease period pain and regulate irregular cycles and just to connect to the womb space as a spiritual practice and so many other things. I'm curious, I want to
You got to
circle
send
back.
me that study. You got to send me
I
that
will.
study.
I will. It's called the fourth trimester study. I will send it your way. I want to circle back to what you were saying about the sitz bath and tap into your vast herbalism knowledge. So, if someone is having pain with intercourse, you mentioned having a sitz bath could be supportive. What kind of herbs would they use for that sitz bath?
You know, lavender is always good. People think of it as a stress relief, but it's
Mhm.
also one of those healing herbs plus calendula. If you look
Ah,
at a lot of salves and balms, calendula is in there. It's very soothing. But even, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say St. John's wort. People think of
oh,
that for depression, but
yeah.
those healing herbs, and everybody has this in their yard. Doesn't mean you go get it in your yard. Please don't. Unless you like, don't put anything. But plantain.
Mm,
It's a common herb that is in people's yard. Don't, like I said, be careful. But it's one of those healing herbs in a lot of tinctures and salves. So real, even I even said people don't like lavender. Some people don't like the smell of it.
mm,
Chamomile.
yeah.
So like chamomile is soothing. So you can go that way. And ooh, and I gotta have to say aloe vera.
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to say aloe vera.
I mean, that sounds like intuitively that it would just be very lubricating and cooling.
Yeah.
And would you recommend that sort of a sitz bath before or after intercourse?
Both.
Great.
Depends on, yeah, both depends on it. And
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to say if that's happening with your partner, lubrication. Have
Lube
something
is
there.
so wonderful. I'm a big fan. Do what you want to do, experiment, try things out. But yeah, don't underestimate the power of lube.
Especially when it's something I've talked with my spouse about it. I'm like, at this phase of my cycle, I'm not gonna be as wet as I would be in this phase. So you gotta understand that. So you gotta take your time. You gotta get the cervical fluid, even though it's not there, it's more arousal fluid in the mix there.
Mhm.
That's why this happens. And it's my own personal thing where that was happening. And I was like, I'm tired of this crap.
Yeah. No, once you understand your cycle and you're able to pick out patterns, everything is slightly different throughout the cycle, especially sex. Like even the certain types of positions really change in my body throughout my cycle, which ones are going to feel good. And then at other points they might feel painful, and how much lubrication I need, and how slow I need to go, or how quick I want to go. Like there's so many different things once you start paying attention to the cycle, because we know that the cervix moves throughout the cycle. Our body releases relaxin, which relaxes the muscles, and the uterus tends to shift. The cervix at least shifts, and the cervix can be so sensitive. And so learning your body's shifts and changes can be a game changer in the bedroom. Absolutely.
And I noticed that there's times where I'm actually more willing to do stuff, and then other times where it's like, no. Like I know like a week before my period's gonna happen. Not because of tracking it and every tracking app always has a calendar and a prediction.
Yep.
I don't go by that. I'm like,
Nope. Don't
no,
trust
I
those
know.
apps.
No, even the ones where you put your stuff in, they're like, this is a predicted. I'm like, shut up. That's a predicted day. Go away. Did you have your period? Leave me alone until I have it. um, even like on the I like fertility for instance for another. I use like three because I always cross reference.
Yeah.
That's me. And they have a predicted date on your calendar. It's just like that. I'm like, I don't even pay attention to that. Go away. Um, but I've noticed like right before my period happens, I don't want nothing. I just want cuddles.
Mm-hmm.
I get really clingy. I just want cuddles. Leave me alone. And I was learning that a lot of the times when that happens, I know what my body's doing. It's wanting the oxytocins. It's wanting that release to have that to have the to not be stressed so that a period can come. And I've also noticed my temperature will go. I'll notice it like a day or two. It goes. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen there, but in the last couple months, it's happened within 24 hours after that drop. So I'm like, oh, yesterday I
Mm-hmm.
was really cuddly.
And that drop in temperature, you're saying that happens like 24 to 48 hours before your bleed? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, because it is that withdrawal of progesterone that causes the next bleed. So normally that drop in our progesterone levels does happen at least 2 days before our actual bleed comes. But sometimes it takes our body that much time to register, like the temperature, like the progesterone drops, so the temperature drops, and then we
Yep.
shed that endometrial lining.
But also, people, it's something I've learned also, even within my herbalist practice, don't wait for the bleed. I don't wait for it. I start taking herbs that help with menstrual stuff and a new cycle when I notice that temperature drop. I even will go as far as saying maybe a few days prior to that because it's something I've noticed that I didn't know until I was reading and it looked. Some women will have where they have some cervical fluid before it, or like this
Mhm.
watery type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is that there? That shouldn't be happening. I'm not having another cycle. I should be bleeding. I've noticed it through cycle. It's the beginning of that before that drop. So I will even start taking stuff before then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my teachers explained it to me as the cervix is opening so that blood can flow through, but anything that was, up there hanging out in the crypts is going to be washed out. So if you have any extra fluid, whether that's cervical mucus or if it's, vaginal cell slough or any of the other fluids that exist in our lovely, beautiful bodies, they start to come out. But yeah, a lot of people are like, oh my God, am I ovulating again? It's like, no, you only ovulate once per cycle.
Yeah.
But I love that tip of starting to take your herbs and your practices before the actual bleed comes, especially if you are someone who is using herbs or certain practices to help with period pain. Like I find that that proactive approach, whether it's, you know, you're taking a higher dose of magnesium or you're drinking red raspberry leaf or nettles, like these things are really helpful if you start doing them several days, if not a week before the bleed. When you work with herbs on your bleed, what kind of herbs are a part of your bleeding rituals?
Oh, I always love red raspberry leaf. Um, because I don't get a lot of herbs in all the time because I'm a collective and saver, so I'm the type of person that's like "Meh, for only
Yeah.
for this." So, sometimes I will outsource it, and I'll outsource it to like Wish Garden is one of my favorite companies because they make tinctures and because they've been around
Mm,
and because it was a midwife company. Um, they have a lot of really good herbs. So it's like, red raspberry. It has that calendula in it. It has sometimes it has maca root in it, and sometimes it will have chaseberry, and it will have those all those beautiful herbs in it. But if I was making my own tincture like I've done before or tea, I always go for the red raspberry because of that. I always go for the maca. Same thing with the regulation of the temper of the menstrual cycle. I think also I'm gonna say chamomile. I don't know why everything chamomile seems to be like the plant in my life, and I think it's
mhm.
because of anxiety and sensitivities. Um, ooh, I am gonna say also that I've done this before. Is I've used two of them. I've used slippery elm, but because of the elm disease, you can use marshmallow root. And I think the reason why I like marshmallow root in that is because it's a mucilaginous herb. So, blood is mucilaginous.
Yes.
So it's that mucilaginous property to really draw it out. So I like that.
Mhm.
And I also use a TENS machine. So
And for, I'm not going to pronounce that word the way that you just did, mucinologist.
mucilaginous.
And that just, does that have to do with mucus?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So like we know our stomach and but let's say you're dry up here for allergies.
Yeah.
It will go in and help with the mucous membranes of your stomach and of your lining of your nose. And we know a lot of people get poopy issues during
Yes,
their
they
period.
do.
So that can help with your stomach. And a lot of people get nausea, even if
Mhm.
they have mild cramps.
Yeah.
So again, it's bringing all herbs in, not just for pain, but
Yes.
also for the overall body. And
Mhm.
that's what I always do. And I am always have all those herbs with me.
Yeah.
They're kind of that type of thing. And I also think for period pain personally, a menstrual cup or disc. I don't use or a pad or
Mhm.
reusable pad. I don't use tampons.
No, me neither.
I don't use it. And now with the study
Mhm.
coming out, I'm like,
Yep.
that might be the reason. So
A
I
disc,
noticed that helps.
mhm. A disc, a cup, reusable pads, period underwear.
Same
Like
with me.
really,
I use both.
yeah. Looking for things that, because like tampons will create inflammation by literally plugging up your flow. So we're really just looking for products that are going to let flow happen a little bit easier. And the menstrual cup doesn't, puff up when it gets blood in it. So it just stays that shape. And then you're able to release the plug and let the flow go. So definitely that's a phenomenal tip. Going back to the slippery elm or the marshmallow root. So when is it creating more mucus or is it releasing mucus?
Um, it it can do both.
Uh-huh.
If you're really dry, it can create mucus. It can
Yeah.
help with those mucus productions.
Uh-huh.
But then also because it's a coating,
Yeah.
a coating herb,
Uh-huh.
it can coat. So like the people that have stomach issues, it can coat the stomach, or if you get nausea, it can really coat the stomach. And good power of it is my daughter's sick with upper with the flu, and
Mhm.
she vomited, and I just was giving her that, and
Yeah.
it just helped coat her stomach and stop the vomiting and diarrhea. So it's like
Mhm.
that. And then if you think of your period, it's really water. It's really so really taking it ahead of time actually can help your mucus production later on in your cycle as well.
Hmm. How far ahead of time do you take it?
Oof. Before, I was
Mhm.
taking it all the time because of my food issues, but now
Gotcha.
I don't have to.
Great.
I've noticed a lot of that clearing up. So probably during my period.
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, with slippery elm and marshmallow root, those are two that I use a lot in my steaming practice, especially when someone is having, issues with lubrication or pain with sex, or yeah, they just need a little bit of extra flow, lubrication, mucus energy. I love that. I want to circle back to red raspberry leaf and chamomile. These are both two pretty easy to find herbs, very popular. I'd love to hear from you. What are the benefits of working with, let's do chamomile first.
Well, personally, for me, it is a relaxant. It
Mhm.
really relaxes you. It really, to me, it's one of those. I'm gonna say if you do yoga, you know how when you first sit down and you start doing your deep breaths, how it like centers you. So
Mhm.
chamomile really centers you. It gets you in that space of mind. And some people chamomile don't work for. But with me, it really calms me and takes the anxiety off and the edge. So after a long day, it's like, and it brings you back to yourself because we're all over the place nowadays. So
Mhm.
it's that centering and I think balancing.
Yeah.
I give it to my cat
And why would that be beneficial for someone while they're bleeding?
because when we don't take the time to stop and center because people get on their periods, say rush, 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 and
Mhm.
really our bodies is telling us
Yeah.
to stop moving, to actually rest. So it actually will bring that back into the forefront of the mind and then help the body. And because if you're running, 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 you get stressed out and your period makes it worse. So it
Yeah.
really, it's that give and take herb. It's that herb that's going to calm the nervous system, but also remind you to do that at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, I love chamomile. And then red raspberry leaf, that was one I now realize how abundant it is, especially in the world of herbalism. But I hadn't heard of that until I started really studying the nervous system. I know that it can help tone the uterus. So it's very commonly ingested as a tea leading up to birth. But also, I know a lot of people who it's really helped them decrease pain on their periods. Can you speak to the either the energetics, the benefits, or whatever you'd like to share about red raspberry leaf?
Everything you said is right. It is a common pregnancy herb
Mhm.
to tonify the liver, but it actually tonifies other parts of your body as well. Like, it's good for the kidneys because of the way it flushes it out, kind of like other herbs are really good for that. But because of the tonifying action, and you're already not saying we're all supposed to have cramps, but with the bleed, we do have that motion of the
My
body.
atrium.
So, yeah, so you have that. So, this brings it down and brings down that inflammation and really kind of controls those cramps. As someone who had horrible cramps as a teenager, introducing that as well as other practices really brought that to mind how we need that to move the body and move the blood out, but we don't need it to work so damn hard
Yeah.
at itself.
Yeah. Don't need it to work so gosh darn hard. Oh, red raspberry leaf. It's also one thing I appreciate about it is it's tasty. Like it's got that like subtle fruity flavor. Whereas sometimes when I'm drinking medicinal herbs, I'm like, oh yeah, this is medicinal. This one's it's quite nice. Subtle.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I'm going to add another one on here, who
Yeah.
can't sleep because of their period cramps, or they can't
Mhm.
sleep because just the, inflammation and whatever issues are going on. I'm going to say valerian. And yes, it's going to smell and
Mm.
taste like a dirty sock. But I tell you,
Might work.
valerian does the same thing as your sleep medications you're going to do that usually get people addicted. It works on the
Mm.
same part of the brain, but isn't addictive. And again, you can titrate up between a little to a lot, but again, you'll know when you can't take it because your body will feel like it's a little.
Mm.
You don't want to get to that point where you can't like pick up your cup.
Yeah.
It's you have to start off on a low percentage of it But that thing, if you're a person like me who can sleep and you take that, you're out. You're out. But with somebody who has some sleep issues during that period, it will make you fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those safe herbs. In herbalism, we hear about tonic herbs, we hear about safe herbs, and then you titrate up to what would, not that it's not safe, but more, the best way I could explain it is like, first we're going to give you the safe drug for your high blood pressure, but then we're going to give you this one we know causes some side effects. So it's like that titrating
Mm-hmm.
effect. I always stay in the safe spot. I only will recommend other herbs, like even St. John's wort for depression. I'm like, we're going to titrate up to that if need be.
Mm-hmm.
But valerian, even though it's on that spectrum of like a sedative, I'm okay with it being in that safe perspective if you titrate it right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that type of thing.
Okay, yeah. And I think that brings up the benefit to working with an herbalist, because while herbs like are generally safe and they are available to use, like just like medications, like it depends what's going on in your body, what other herbs or medications you're taking, what foods you're eating, how things are going to interact. So
Supplements. That's
supplements,
another.
yes, huge. Like a lot of us are taking, especially those of us who are in the holistic health natural world, we're taking a lot of supplements, and some of them are herb based, some of them are other things based. But I think that it's important to know, like if you're trying to treat something, that there are wonderful resources available with lots of different herbalists, and with you, Glenna, like to say like, hey, let's do a health intake, let's make sure that these are the right herbs for you. And like you were saying, the dose matters, so figuring out that dose is key.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of my favorite teachers when it came to herbalism and will be for all time is Rosemary Gladstar, because
Mhm.
she brings that old wisdom of, instead of a cup here, a cup there, the old simpler method that matches with that. And a lot of people ain't gonna get that unless you're into herbalism and you use it. So
Yeah.
it's for clients, it's like teaspoon this, teaspoon that. They don't realize, oh, this is 4 herbs, but that ain't it's only making a small thing like that. But you don't realize how much is in that teaspoon. We can
Hmm.
titrate up to 1 tablespoon
Yeah.
for one thing, but we're gonna start at a lower thing. Just like with tinctures, we're gonna start at 1 or 2 drops,
Yep.
and we're gonna start in a little bit of water,
Hmm.
and then we can titrate up to, you can just do it in your mouth. I don't
Yeah.
even do that. If it says 20 drops, I'm like, no. Especially if you're going to be doing it 2 or 3 times a day. It's like
Yeah.
20 drops within a day,
Yeah.
not all at one time.
Hmm.
And I don't think when people buy herbal products, they look at that and they look
No.
at that mindset. They're like, no, they don't realize you can take this long term. And I think the best teacher of mine was, outside of myself and my husband, was my cat, because I was like, oh, my cat's gonna do herbal take herbs, because I did a whole thing about pets, and I
Yeah.
was like, and I started looking at her and was like, why are little animals taking smaller doses but can take them 1 or 2, 3 times a day? And I really think homeopathy brought that into that aspect. It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
homeopathy can be taken 1, 2, 3 times a day. Why can't herbs slowly titrate up and
Yeah.
really do that as well? And I also think having more studies with about gut health and how that is
Hmm.
really messing people up, and how fixing it is a long haul,
Yeah.
and how even with certain things we have to start at a lower dose to get to the higher dose for maximum effect. And it's been interesting
Yeah.
how it can translate into other areas of our life, even yoga.
Yeah. I think that that idea of starting slow, it's very, trauma informed too. And it gives the body time to acclimate to something new and to send you messages. If something isn't working out for you, it can send, quieter messages than if you're taking something at a high dose. But yeah, Rosemary Gladstar, that's her
Mm-hmm.
last name. She's a great resource. I have her book. It's that Herbal Healing for Women.
I have that. I have actually the older copy.
Ah.
I have the one that it was first came out. I got
Okay.
that. I didn't want the newer one. I wanted the older one.
Yeah, that goes into different herbs that you can use and how you can use them. The other herb that you mentioned for the menstrual cycle was maca, or I guess that's a root.
Yes.
What are the benefits of maca?
The number one benefits is its regulation. It regulates your menstrual cycle, so it regulates from all your cycles. So you
Mm-hmm.
can take it constantly. So it's one of those kind of like we think about immune modulators that modulate the immune system. Think of
Mm-hmm.
this as like a modulator for your uh, menstrual cycle, for your fifth vital sign.
Yes. Do you have any idea how it does that?
Actually, oh my God, there's a lot, but off the top of my head, I don't know the actions. It's one of those chemical reactions. Each herb
Yeah.
might work for different people at different phases, and that's another thing. Just because one herb works for somebody else does not mean it will work for you. Kind of
Yes.
like I said, sometimes chamomile does not calm people down. It don't work at all.
Yeah.
So but it might be working for them. It just might not be a calming herb that they could feel. It might be a calming in a different way. So it's knowing that different properties. Now, if you wanted to go into the scientific, this has this vital oil and this has this, herbalism and herbalists know that, but I have not wanted to, I've learned that, but it's like I don't remember it. I don't
Yeah.
remember what it's good for. But I'm the type of person that has, like you, I have reference books here and I'm not afraid to pull them out and be like, hold a minute.
Yeah.
This is the vital oils and read it off to you
Mm-hmm.
to make sure you feel safe. So that I
Yeah.
think that's what makes me and you unique, because I think a lot of holistic health, like doctors, don't want to say they're wrong. They don't want to double check. They want to
Mm-hmm.
just give you resources right out gate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a coach and a practitioner. Is the practitioner will sit with you and be like, hold on.
Yeah, all the time I'm like, I want to like I'm like I feel pretty confident in this thing, but like before we start doing it, I want to do a little bit more research and I'm going to, send you an email follow up later. Like I am so ready to tell people when I don't know a thing because like that's just the reality. And like I want to be so honest when it comes to people's health and really like coming back to this space of empowerment. Like that's what the menstrual cycle is about. That's what I believe even herbalism is about. It's about putting power back into people's hands and bodies to heal and understand themselves. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on your body. I know a lot of things, but I don't know what's happening inside of your body. I'm not going to pretend to. I'm curious. I'm jumping a little bit.
Okay.
For the menstrual cycle, you were saying some of the herbs that you work with are red raspberry leaf, chamomile, valerian, maca, slippery elm, or marshmallow root. What do you think of CBD?
Coming from a former person that used to smoke pot every now and then.
Sure.
Um, After seeing Charlotte's plant and what it did for non hive stuff, but the CBD, what that
Mm.
actually did for her seizures, that was shocking how that worked. So it's like taking that medicinal plant. We know Native Americans even used it for medicinal purposes. Like tobacco was used for wounds and tobacco was used for stuff. I've even had it used to draw out things before.
Mm-hmm.
How what we consider as addictive qualities really is not supposed to be that. That is the stuff in tobacco and the stuff in pot is a defense mechanism. Kind of like when certain spices are spicy, it's a defense mechanism. The hill itself, kind of like the caterpillar, will do that. Certain herbs, the rose has thorns. It's a defense mechanism. Not
Mm.
that it's not a good defense mechanism, not that it's not meant to do that, but in and of itself, when you take the properties out and you use the holistic part of it, it is really good. So I think if you have a regulative process for that, because a lot of states don't have regulatory process, you're just getting it from somebody at the grocery store. If you have a regulatory process and it's from a good company, then yes, it works for pain. We know it
Mm-hmm.
works for multiple sclerosis pain. We know it works for depression. We know that. But I think the problem with that is when people try it, I've seen it myself, is they want the high. They don't want the medicinal properties. They realize it. But
Mhm.
that high is actually causing brain issues, not the
Mhm.
CBD. So it's
Yeah.
like we got to realize where to draw the line at. If you want
Mhm.
to change your high, then you might want to check yourself.
Yeah. And the high being caused by the THC and
Yeah.
the other properties of it. But I know that I have a lot of clients and myself too, like CBD, either tinctures or gummies, you know, nothing that is like not the psychoactive stuff can be
Yeah.
really helpful with, similar to chamomile, creating a softening in the nervous
Yeah.
system and decreasing pain and inflammation. And so I see a lot of like period tinctures or period teas these days that have CBD in them. And so that can be I was just curious if you thought that was a
Oh yeah,
beneficial herb for the
it
menstrual
is.
cycle.
But then also just like with your
Yeah.
herb, you got to make sure it's a good quality.
Yes.
It's not tainted. It's not some Joe down the block.
Yes. Yeah. And then another herb that I wanted to ask about in the menstrual cycle is nettles.
I love that. That's actually good also for allergies.
Oh,
Nettle tea is also good for allergies. And
okay.
yes, nettles, it's a nutritive herb. So anybody could take that. It's very nutritive. So it really nourishes the body. So if you're a woman, it really nourishes every single part of your cell and every single part of you. And we know the menstrual cycle is part of that. So, your iron. And that's another thing. Iron is really good in nettles.
Hmm.
So is other properties within that. But I always focus on the iron because
Yeah.
that's what jumps out to me, but it's a nutritive. So I would be like, put it in your smoothie every day.
Yeah. I have a friend who uses it in a seasoning blend for all of her food too. So if someone is wanting to include herbs into their cycle, do you think that there's a difference in terms of tinctures and teas? Is one preferred as to the other?
I like tea, but that's just me. I
Yeah.
like my tinctures. I like my tinctures. They're both the same thing, but I think I like the tea more because it's the act of making it yourself. Even if
Hmm.
it's in a tea bag
Yeah.
and you know it's good, it's the act of putting it for the tea over. It's act of
Hmm.
that. Unless you're making your tinctures yourself, you don't get that
Hmm.
unless you, like me, you know a company that you can see their process, you know
Yeah.
that they've been around for years, you can trust that,
Hmm.
you can still tap into that when you put your tinctures in your water. And
Yeah.
it's that taking a minute to ground, you know, thank
Hmm.
the herbs for what they're doing and really taking the time to uh really, I'm going to say, commune with what you're doing and get and do it other than just being fast active. So I really think the tea brings you back to yourself. It's really
Hmm.
that thing. And I noticed that's what I do in the morning. When I do it, I kind of rush, but I won't drink my tea very much. I've had
Hmm.
many times where I'm like, oh, this is half my tea, and then I'll drink it later.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a saver. That's the point. With my teas, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm a saver. I'm not gonna drink it all this right away.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I would go with the making the tea.
Yeah. I like, especially for the menstrual phase, I think adding in like hot tea, warm tea, it also creates warmth in the body, warmth in the uterus, and helps to clear out that any sense of stagnation, which can cause further pain, cramping, brown blood, all sorts of things. But I think, yeah, there's a level of practicality too. If you're not someone who enjoys drinking a cup of tea, do the tincture. Like if there's so many different ways
Hot water, you
to
can do
work
it
with
with
the
hot
herbs.
water.
With hot water, yeah, that's basically a tea.
Yeah,
But it's a
and I
tincture tea.
yeah, and I think that that goes into the Ayurvedic practice of things that are cold using hot stuff, things that are hot,
Mhm.
like summer. We don't want to be eating a lot of hot stuff. And if you notice, a lot of people will eat hot stuff, but they let their food cool.
Mhm.
They will do more cooling stuff. So it brings back into Ayurvedic practices I know about and use. So, and your douches, different douches, what implements one. And then again, that's personalized. That's not a set thing, it's all personalized.
Mhm.
But blood would be cold, they say, that coming out of the body. So you would use heat to warm that, especially with inflammation. And then that goes into Chinese medicine where inflammation is wet and cold and bringing all that.
Yeah. And so, as someone is moving into their follicular phase towards ovulation, as their body is building an estrogen, as they're getting ready for ovulation, what type of herbs would you recommend?
Ooh. I think I would recommend, I'm still going to say red raspberry throughout the whole thing. Um, I definitely, because you're going to have more energy, definitely again that valerian in there, and the marshmallow root, especially to help with the estrogen, just in case you're a woman that don't produce a lot of mucus. Um, I think it's the same thing as where women for a while were using uh mucilaginous things that they were using like Mucinex to do that. You
Yeah.
can do that naturally. And it's like I'm like, okay, it might work, but it's like you can do that naturally. I also think I would bring in again that maca throughout the whole cycle, but I think I would bring in ooh, that's a good question. Tulsi. I think
Ooh,
I would bring
yes,
in
holy
holy
basil.
basil.
I love Tulsi. What are the benefits of Tulsi?
Oh my god, that's a huge thing with an Ayurvedic. It does everything. Let's just say calms, energizes. Oh my god, it's a huge thing.
Mhm.
So calms and energizes. It's like that's why they call it holy basil. It's like it's the thing. It's a immune modulator, so it really helps with everything in the body. And I mean, that's I have like two of those over there. Think looking at my tea and was like, that has my tea has all that in
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Are there any herbs that you think of or that you use in your practice specifically to support the process of ovulation?
I think again, I'm gonna say maca. That's what
Maca.
I like to
Mhm.
use because it's a regulation. Uh,
Maca's bitter too, right?
yes, it can. You can get it in capsules. You can
Because when I think about ovulation, one of the things, there's a lot going on, but one of the things that is helpful is your liver functioning well.
turmeric and ginger. I was gonna say that too.
Turmeric and ginger, and then bitter herbs that help. What do bitter herbs do for the liver? Do they detox it? Do they activate it? I think they stimulate.
Both. They
Okay.
they stimulate it, but you can
Yeah.
also have bitter herbs that activate it, and
Mhm.
then you can also have bitter herbs that actually detox it and help with phase 1 and 2. Like turmeric and ginger helps with one stimulate it, but helps with phase 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Um, I also would go for if you wanted that. Ooh, because I can't have ginger because I've realized I'm sensitive to it. It says I would go with dandelion root.
Uh-huh.
To replace that turmeric and dandelion root, but also you got fenugreek and fennel seed.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
really
really good.
pulling
So
from the Ayurveda here. Yeah.
um, which pulls from the Western herbalism as well,
Uh-huh.
if you look at it. So those are the herbs I would really look at.
Great, yeah. Continuing with the red raspberry leaf, the valerian, the marshmallow root, the maca, maybe adding in some tulsi, some turmeric, some ginger, some fennel, and dandelion root detox in the herbs. And as we're listing things, you don't have to use all of these. We're talking about
No,
what they're all good for. You can just focus on one herb. You can make your own little mixes. You can get something given to you by an herbalist. But these are just some of the things that you can add in to connect to your cycle.
I would also say for the pre-menopausal women going into perimenopause and
Yeah,
menopause, black cohosh is going to be your best friend.
black cohosh.
And blue cohosh. The natives use that a lot. It's
Mhm.
an actually native to North America. So it's not like it's an estrogen dependent herb. It's not like it's gonna make estrogen, but because it has those phytoestrogens in them, it's not like your BPA, which it's like, oh, that's estrogen, let the body use it and does
Yeah.
that. This is phytoestrogens. It's its own estrogen within the plant, but it is as close to humans as you
Hmm.
can get. So when you are going through that perimenopause and menopause phase, it's good to supplement that
Yeah.
because it helps regulate that. And I think once we start perimenopause, women need to start thinking of when they stop their cycle. We know estrogen is important during menopause, and
Hmm.
so is progesterone.
Oh yeah.
That we only keep enough, so we need to keep that regulating through the
Hmm.
cycle.
Yeah. And I think I love that you're adding in things for that phase of life, because oftentimes as we move towards perimenopause and menopause, we start to experience changes and we're like, what do we do? Herbs can be such an important ally. And as you were mentioning those, like a little alarm went off in my brain, and I'm like, right. If you are actively trying to get pregnant, please consult with an herbalist before you are adding things in, especially these powerful herbs. And I think of black cohosh and blue cohosh in high enough amounts, they could disrupt a pregnancy. So being mindful
Yes.
and getting the support that you need.
Yes, and even there are certain herbs you cannot take
Yeah.
in pregnancy. You can't even take oils in pregnancy for. But
Mm-hmm.
red raspberry is safe throughout the whole pregnancy. That you
Yes.
want to be careful. So I love that. I think other than black cohosh, I think red raspberry is a woman's herb.
Oh, beautiful. And so we combined, like, I when I think of herbs for the cycle, we kind of combined the follicular phase with ovulation. I see those as similar energetically for herbs. But so the only part of our cycle that we haven't talked about yet is the luteal phase, that time in between ovulation and the next bleed, where a lot of women experience many of the symptoms of PMS, or premenstrual syndrome, or symptoms, which can have lots of different root causes. And there's different ways to treat each type of PMS. But I'm curious, as you move into your luteal phase currently, what are some of the herbs that you are going to or would like to add in?
I'm definitely adding the turmeric. I'm still keeping with the turmeric because the inflammation with myself. Definitely did not realize it till somehow something clicked in my head that all the teas I'm drinking has maca in it, and I was like, wow,
Mm.
cool. Let me go back and learn about that. Definitely, definitely Tulsi. Tulsi, keeping with the Tulsi with that, and I think I'll be bringing in the red raspberry now by the end of next week.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Based on how everything I probably will start it once the progesterone, I know progesterone has kicked in, just to have it there for the tonifying effects and the
Yeah.
nutritive. And I think I'm gonna bring in some fire. So I probably use a little bit of not black pepper, but like what's a really good herb that's fire? The turmeric is kind of fiery.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but a really deep down herb that I really love and I like it, I can't say it wrong, is dingjong root.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's bringing that in there as well. So I think bringing that and also chaseberry.
Chaseberry or Vitex. Yeah. Real quick, going back, the ding John, what is the benefit of adding heat into your teas and into your body during the luteal
It,
phase?
it's not like a heat, but it's really grounding. So you
Mm,
think about grounding and then you think about that hot tea that you're drinking,
yeah.
like just warm. I think it's because once your temperature spikes down, you go from being really hot, I've noticed, to like that temperature shift to being like a little bit cold. You notice like your body temperature is a little bit colder, so it kind of, in my opinion, gives you that comfort. So it's like that comfort
Mhm.
when you're not feeling well. So it's like when you're sick with the
Yeah.
cold, it's that hot
Hmm.
stuff that really just helps you move through it. So it
Yeah.
really, I also think it's that phase, like within, like I said, yoga. When we prepare and we sit down and we do a little meditation before yoga and we breathe, how it prepares us for what we're going to do next. So I think doing that during our starting right during our period, or even in the luteal phase, just adding things slowly gets us to when we start bleeding so we can say it's a rest period.
Hmm.
So, like personally, outside of herbs, I'm going to stop taking so many things. I stopped taking so many. Like, this
Yeah.
is a busy week, but after that, no more. I'll stop doing some studies. I'll focus more in on myself. And I think that also is that ritual. So I think within herbalism, it's that ritual. So those are the herbs that are ritualistically
Hmm.
there.
Yeah. I like that groundedness. And like you were saying, yeah, the immune system takes a hit in the luteal phase. Like we know that our immune system literally drops so that if an egg were fertilized, our body wouldn't attack it as a foreign invader. So this is a time when, like, if you're exposed to some germs and things, you might get sick. You're more likely to experience that. So yeah, adding in that groundedness, that support, the nutrition from tulsi and turmeric and red raspberry leaf, and I think you said ding dong, and chaseberry. So chaseberry is one, Vitex is also another name for it, that is super popular in the women's health world. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about chaseberry.
The reason it was called chaseberry is because it chased the priests.
But
So
does it?
no, it
I'm taking
no,
it.
no,
I
it
wasn't
actually
chased.
no, it revitalizes your organs. It revitalizes just everything within the body. And so there's a lot to go into that. I'm still kind of reading the research about that
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, there's so much.
Yeah.
Just I'm, cornucopia. One book says this says that. So,
Mhm.
and even like within men's health, they use that to revitalize the prostate and revitalize the
Yeah.
semen fluid. And it's something that I think in like with maca to constantly use throughout the cycle because it changes with what you do. So it's
Mhm.
one of those beautiful herbs that are not just for one specific time. It can be used
Mhm.
constantly, but
Yeah.
again, you got to be very careful about what you do use.
Yes. And specifically for treating PMS, it's normally taken in the luteal phase.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that one can be helpful. I mean, like all these herbs, they're not for everyone, but that one is quite popular for women's health and for PMS in general. I feel like lavender would also be a nice one to add in the luteal phase, like a little stress relief, aromatherapy type stuff.
Yes. You can even go with sage.
Ooh.
Sage is very grounding and very, if you're a type of person that sages their room, do that. You don't even have to put it in your tea.
Sage the room. Drink the sage, cook with sage.
Yeah,
Yeah, sage is a good one. Are there any other herbs that you would suggest for the luteal phase?
I think I'm gonna say this, and it's probably because I have it in my pantry and I love it so much.
Uh-huh.
Parsley.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to we know parsley and like oregano and certain other herbs help pull out heavy metals, help pull out inflammation
Ooh,
and toxicity. So I
yeah,
think that's what it is.
I love that. Yeah. And what about the valerian in this phase?
I would start that probably when I notice PMS symptoms start. Like
Mm-hmm.
with me, that's a couple days before my period now. So I
Mm-hmm.
would start doing that for the sleepless nights or where for some reason PMS, in my opinion, when it happens to me, it's anxiety prone. It's
Mm-hmm.
where my anxiety comes in. So that's where I would use it. So for those, I'm overthinking.
Yeah. Yeah. That is one of the four main categories of PMS. It's, anxiety, depression, cravings, and something else that starts with a C, or heaviness. And they each have a different root cause. So yeah, like that makes sense. We'd want to pull out the heavy metals and create some grounding. So let's say that someone is listening on this conversation and they are so jazzed about herbs and they want to learn about these herbs and learn how to make their own teas and tinctures and all the things. Where would you recommend that they get some more information?
Come to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Go to my website, which is theholisticblend.com, and you can find me on social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, and also Threads. But if even if they don't want to come to me because they don't know like how to do that, I have a women's group which is donation based.
Mm-hmm.
It's right now it's only $5 for a year because I don't do it very often. So that's a nice way to do that because we talk about many different things within it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that might change in a couple years where it's month by month you will pay that.
Yeah.
Depends on how we get to that, but I just wanted to start something. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of were my inspiration and other people how just having those groups really it brings women together, but then
Mm-hmm.
also it brings past clients together so they can really help. But maybe also down the road, I wanted to let everybody know here I will have a pregnancy program and a postpartum program,
Amazing.
and I am bringing herbalism into that. That is an actual program. All my stuff is programs. I have monthly programs, but this will be a
Mm-hmm.
program, and I'm excited about that because I think I'm the life cycle expert. I think I'm the practitioner that goes for the life cycle of people
Mm,
instead of just one or the other. I'm like, I'm with
yeah.
you from the beginning to the end. And
Hmm.
thank you for bringing the trauma informed. And I will be doing a class about that. And some things personally has been happening to me and friends I know that has brought trauma informed back into the why I should know that. So I'll be bringing that into every aspect of my training.
Beautiful. I'm excited for your training out with your trainings in, fertility awareness and herbalism and as a doula and a lactation consultant and
I'll be
yeah,
doing childbirth classes eventually once I have that. Getting more people
all the
together.
things. I think that's such a beautiful offering. Are there any other offerings that you'd like to highlight here that you'd like to tell people that are going on in the next coming months?
Yes, in the next couple months, not that it's a service, but you will see a change in my title. I will be a naturopathic practitioner instead of holistic health
Oh,
practitioner. Um, so that is a big thing because that's bringing in more everything. So I'll be learning more about hydrotherapy and that. I'll be learning more about
ooh,
homeopathy instead of just being a certified homeopathy. I'll be learning more about that. I will be learning more about herbs, so that's beautiful. But nature therapy, how that I learned that in my master's, but how this will deep dive into that and how the philosophy of naturopathy is kind of already there. Kind of like do no
mhm.
harm, do this as a teacher. It's already there. And coming up in the next couple weeks, I'll be launching a 2 month, 1 to 2 months package. Depends, I haven't decided yet, which will be having an added on allergy and sensitivity or environmental test. Insurance
Ooh,
will pay for it if you have
hot
insurance.
diggity.
And it's basically consultant where I'm consulting you, but it's going to be worth its money for the test is usually like 200, 300 if your insurance pays for it.
Mhm.
You're just doing the one allergy test and just having me consult with you once or twice. It's
Mhm.
a bargain for what I'm going to have it. It's going to be cheaper than the $300 I usually do. It's going to be a
Yeah.
little less than that because I've made, I think it's with myself when I've learned it, how that and everything else is impacted. So it's a starting point to hopefully get you to stay with me for things and how I
Yeah.
might bundle gut testing with that. How that
Mm.
and gut testing, how gut testing insurance won't pay for it, but how
Yeah.
I can tack that in as an offer if somebody needs that. And I didn't realize that IBS and food sensitivity are so related.
Yes.
I even got my husband doing it right now. Our insurance is paying for him, and I'm just like, I have IBS. You will be my person. I already have another client that's doing it for me too. But I'm like, anything I try on you guys, I try on myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's another thing you gotta realize. I am my husband and even my cat's a guinea pig. I even
You
got my
are
husband.
sharing the love, the health, the experimentation with
I
those
got
that
my
you love
husband.
most.
I got my husband. He doesn't know this, but I got him tracking his. I'm in the. I will find a study and give him a basal body temperature thermometer and make him take it and see what happens. I
Yeah.
want to do that so bad to see if their men's temperatures change. We know they constantly produce stuff, so
Mm.
it's like doing that. But
They do with the thyroid. So like older thyroid testing was just basal body temperature throughout the day.
yeah, so it's like I want to do that for men and see if their temperature changes. So it is something I'm gonna do in the fall. I know it's not. I'm not no big researcher, but
Yeah.
I want to do it and see because if it wasn't for my husband, he wouldn't. I wouldn't have been able to realize that men have their own thing too. And I also think taking charge of your fertility taught me that a little bit too.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, they have it. They have to have a temperature fluctuation. I think we would have to check twice, one in the morning, one at night. But
Mm.
I want to do that.
Yeah. And you
so
can.
so maybe I'll do a blog. Maybe that will
Yeah.
come out as a blog.
Blog, all the things that you learn. Glenna, where can people find you? Where can they stay in contact with you?
They can see me on my website at theholisticglen.com, on Instagram and Facebook and Threads at theholisticglen by Glenna James.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, your wisdom, your willingness to come here and share. I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I'm so grateful for you and happy to be connected with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. If you enjoyed it, it would mean the absolute world to me if you'd share it with someone else that you think would like it, or leave a review. You can learn more about our guest by reading the notes below. And if you want to learn more about me, my one-on-one coaching, my memberships, or my online courses, you can learn more at mysticfemininefertility.com or Mystic Feminine Fertility on TikTok and Instagram. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.